Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm going to kind of get things started. I know a few people will eventually make their way in. And, all right. So this is, as they say in Monty Python land, something completely different. So this is called, as you know, the open mic session, and the theme is, what's the greatest challenge in energy? I presume most of you saw the sessions yesterday. And I think it's pretty clear if you saw what the lady did on the chalkboard that this isn't your ordinary everyday conference. And we try to mix things up. Can you guys get by? You might have to go on stage to make it in here. But this is an improv theater in case you didn't know. So we're all kind of making this fly as we go. Okay, good. We're almost all in. So I'm going to get started here. So yesterday, as you probably saw, we had some really, really interesting talks from people about where energy is going, how we're going to get there. But one of the themes that for me is very strong through this is, and you may have heard it from the mayor's talk last night, that the creative spirit of the arts and energy is just as important as the energy we produce from the earth. And that's pretty clear in the way this conference runs. My name, by the way, is Jon Arnold. I'm the community advocate for ETS, the conference, and I'm an advisor to Zpryme Research. So I do a lot of research in this industry and have a lot of kind of role in pulling this conference together. So one of the things we came up with here was this theme of, this is kind of an informal peer review. You won't get this anywhere else. So what we're going to be doing here is each of our three speakers is going to speak for 10 minutes. And they've each come up with a theme, and they're going to tell you what that theme is. It's 5 words or less to describe it, something about the future of energy, and just like in an old-style game show, they're going to write it on a chalkboard, just like you saw yesterday from the lady. I think her name was Mary Ann or Mary Ellen or something. Anyway, she was really great. Then they're going to do their thing. Neither knows what the other is going to talk about, so there's a little element of surprise, and they've even got a couple of props to get their points across. Now, on your chairs, you should have a little ballot card, right? And the idea is the audience is going to pick the winner. So each will speak for 10 minutes, do their thing. You will vote. You can either vote one after another or wait till they're all done and then pick one that you like the best. At the end, Clara is going to come around and collect your cards. We will announce a winner, and that's going to be it. And we're going to, basically the winner is going to get a big check to donate to a charity of their choice. So there is some goodness coming out of this at the end of the day. And I think it's kind of cool. You got some peer review in a very different environment, and we're going to be videotaping this, as you can tell. And we have some musical accompaniment that I was willing to do, but we actually got a real piano player. Anyways, and your name is, sir?
Adam Lazoya.
Aaron?
Adam Lazoya.
Adam Lazoya, okay. And it's a 61 key?
64.
64 key, so it's not quite an 88, but. And by the way, yesterday was the 88th day of the year. So I have a friend, another fellow piano player. So yesterday was piano day because it's the 88th day of the year. But we're a little shortchanged. So I'm going to stop talking and get things moving because we want to keep the time. So each will do their 10 minutes. We'll do a vote at the end and then a nice kind of appreciation for the winner. So I'm going to leave it in there. I'm going to assume capable hands. So we're going to start off with Steve Collier. Some or all will be familiar to you. Steve is Director of Smart Grid Strategies at Milsoft Utility. Mary Ann Brelinsky, President of EDF Energy Services. And Bill Meehan from Esri, Director of Utility Solutions, who has quickly come here from Bangkok, from Thailand. So this guy gets around. So I will leave it at that. You guys, it's really cool that you're all here, so it's a great turnout. So I'm going to turn the stage over to our speakers, and we'll start with Stephen, and go time. Oh yeah, I have to pass this up. It's improv.
Good morning. Thanks for being here. This would be a lot harder to do alone. I brought my props. have yet another prop. Another rule was we had to have a 5-word title. And mine, handwriting, I'm afraid, is vulgarly inadequate, so I'll read it to you. It's "The Internet of Things Arrives." And I hope that you will listen to Bob Metcalf tomorrow, because that's where that term comes from. The challenge of the grid is, how do we deal with this emerging chaos? That's the challenge that I'm talking about. The grid as we know it today, the electric grid, while on the one hand is considered to be a wonder of the world, the largest and most complex machine ever created by man, yet on the other hand, compared to what's coming down the pike, with what our customers are beginning to use, which is their own power plants and their own appliances, working together, sometimes independently of the utility, that complexity pales in comparison. Let's talk about the numbers for just a minute. In the legacy electric grid, you heard several times yesterday our 100-year-old grid, this grid that started out in the late 1800s and still exists today. It was in the 1970s that all of this chaos began to occur. But the grid as it exists today has about 7,000 power plants in the United States of America, the North American grid. In those power plants are about 20,000 generating units of a megawatt or more, okay? Not that many generators, not that many power plants. There are about 70,000 substations and about 160,000 miles of line and 145 million metered customers. And this part of the grid has for decades been a smart grid, highly instrumented, monitored and controlled centrally in real time. The generation and transmission grid has been a smart grid forever. But as this chaos moves out to the edges, we talk about a grid that is not smart. We talk about a distribution system that is a passive, reactive system. Now let's think about what's happening out on the edge of the grid, on the distribution edge of the grid. We already are approaching 1 million rooftop solar arrays in the United States of America. 1 million rooftop solar arrays. A new one goes in service every 5 minutes or so. So we're adding 100,000 a year if you do the math. That says we're not far from several million rooftop solar arrays if it continues at that pace, and it will continue at that pace for 4 reasons. This legacy grid that is a smart grid is proving to be inadequate. We have increasing outages, decreasing reliability, in part because of the increasing frequency, severity, and duration of severe weather events, but also because we have a grid that we're not investing in any longer. Who wants to build a power plant and raise rates? Who wants to build a transmission line and raise rates? Who even wants to go through the fight? I mean, the last transmission lines we built in Texas were the CREZ lines, and it was a huge uproar the entire time. We're not building new facilities, and we have a grid, a legacy generation and transmission grid, in which depreciation exceeds new investment. Now, when that happens to your car, when the repair bills are costing you more than a car payment, what do? You get a new car. Well, we can't get a new grid because we can't afford it. So declining reliability, unacceptable sustainability is the second reason that the grid that exists today, which is a fine, smart, reliable grid, but decreasingly so, it is producing byproducts that consumers and others don't like. In addition, the costs are rising while the revenues are declining. Starting in 1973, at the time of the OPEC and oil embargo, an exponentially increasing load curve, in other words, load increased every year compounded by anywhere from 3 to 8%. The load since then has not grown that rapidly, and in fact, in the last 5 years, kilowatt-hour sales have actually declined in the absolute. So that legacy grid is turning out to not be as adequate as we would like for it to be. And so we have a million, close to 1 million rooftop solar arrays. We have 500,000 electric vehicles. And I heard Michael Liebrick from Bloomberg Energy Finance say at the Electric Light and Power Conference, executive conference a few weeks ago in Orlando, that we're 5 years away from a 200-plus mile, $25,000 electric vehicle. Now, if you don't think that means a lot more than 500,000 electric vehicles, it does. And an electric vehicle is a house load wandering around on your system. So now we may have millions of distributed generating units, not including Elon's Powerwall, which he took off the market when he got the publicity splash that he needed, and the next one will be an economically viable battery. We have, in addition to that, the data from the EIA and the FERC suggest, and the DOE suggest that by 2020, fully 30% of the installed generation capacity in this country will not be owned and operated by electric utilities. So what do we have? We go from a complex machine, but a relatively few number of points of interest, of nodes that I need to monitor and control, to the possibility of having millions, even billions of nodes that I'm going to have to control. And so all of a sudden, the alarm light goes on. My little appliance, that's my little microgrid. It's got its own power source, it's got its own appliance. It's my own microgrid. And as many of our electric utility folks told us yesterday, well, Steve, you're going to need our grid because your grid isn't going to work all the time. And you can see my light isn't burning brightly continuously. But it's an alarm. And it's alarm. What do we do about this alarming statistics? How do we monitor and analyze and control and optimize billions and billions of independent endpoints, many of whom are dispatched by God? When the wind blows, when the sun shines, when the clouds come over. How do we do that? Well, there's a fortunate thing that occurred. The telcos had to go through this before we did. And what the telco business transformed into is the Internet of Things. And today, how many independent autonomous points do you think are connected to the Internet of Things? 1 million? How many think more than 1 million? 1 billion? How many think more than 1 billion? 10 billion. How many think more than 10 billion? Cisco says it'll be 50 billion by 2030. It's on the order of 20 billion today. I have a cell phone in my pocket that's connected to to almost everything in the world that you can think of at my house. My Nest thermostat, my Amazon Echo device, my wireless DVRs. It is an example of how you deal with this sort of complexity, and the way we deal with it, the way that we will meet this challenge. And we'll have to meet this challenge because I believe, as Dan Quayle said one time at a campaign speech that I was listening to in Indiana when he was a United States Senator and running for Vice President of the United States, and he said to us, he got to the mic and he looked at us and he said, we are in the midst of an irreversible trend. We were all thinking that's very profound. And he thought about that for a bit, and if you remember Dan Quayle, there was always a non sequitur to come. He said, but that could change. That's where we are. We're in the midst of an irreversible trend towards complexity, but that could change. What if there are batteries? What if there are fuel cells? What if there are new technologies that we know nothing about? We've got to deal with billions of endpoints, and we have an Internet of Things that's shown us how we can do that. And the Internet of Things, the energy Internet of Things, will help us do that. It's inevitable. Thank you very much.
Steve, if I touch this, what's going to happen? I'll turn it off. Okay. So we've got the next speaker coming up, Mary Ann. Just for those of you who came in late, I just want to make sure you have a little card, because at the end we're going to be voting on every speaker. So I just want to make sure everyone's got a card. If you don't, Claire is here and can fill you up, and we'll be fine. So are we ready? Set, go.
Thank you, everybody. Steve, can I borrow you for a second?
Absolutely.
Can you hold the bottom of that?
I can.
Like your wall. Awesome. Thank you. Hold on tight. Over here. Over the holidays, I was in my parents' kitchen, and my youngest son came up to me. Thank you. It was awesome. My youngest son came up to me and he said, "Mommy, is Grandma afraid she's going to lose her telephone?" And I tilted my head at him like I do when I don't understand what's coming out of one of my child's mouths. And I said, I don't think so. Why do you think Grandma's afraid she's going to lose her telephone? And he says to me, he says, "Well, why does she have it tied to the wall?" Thank you. And it got me thinking that this next generation of millennials, they are never going to have to untangle the long phone cord. They're not going to get to hold a tape recorder up to the radio to record their favorite song. And heaven forbid, they're not going to have to drive to Blockbuster to rent a movie. It is amazing to me how technology has not only impacted our lives, but the lives of our children. Basically, everything we touch, everything we do, technology is driving that. So it got me thinking, cell phone, technology. If you handed this cell phone to Alexander Graham Bell, he would not know what to do with it. The technology in this phone looks, feels, acts nothing like the rotary phone of my childhood. AT&T, Verizon have had to change their business models to adapt to this disruptive technology. But if you took Thomas Edison and you put him down in a substation, he would be able to see the turbines, the generators, the transmission line, and find the light bulb at the other end. Our energy industry has not seen truly disruptive innovation the way telecom and other industries have. So what does it mean to be disruptive? It really means to change a business model, to change an industry so profoundly it doesn't recognize itself afterwards. One of my favorite examples of a disruptive technology is Uber. Everybody loves Uber. Uber single-handedly turned the taxi industry upside down. And that's saying a lot, given that the taxi industry, largely, their business model has remained unchanged since the early 17th century, when the first for-hired horse-drawn carriages showed up on the streets in Paris and in London. Coming back to the United States, in New York City, in 2011, the value of a single taxi medallion, one taxi cab, one medallion, $1.3 million. That same year, Uber shows up in New York City with 100 Uber cars. Ubering years later, the value of that same taxi medallion today, $600,000. Uber has wiped out half of the value of the taxi industry in New York City. But what does the market really think about that? If you took all of the dollars that in the United States we spend on taxi and Ubering, it's about $11 billion a year. Given the latest round of funding for Uber, their current valuation, $62 billion. 6 times the total revenue for 1 year of the taxi industry in the United States. My first job out of college, I'm an engineer. My first job out of college was with Exxon. I made ethylene for a living. So ethylene, hydrocarbon, olefin, think 2 carbon atoms, double bond in between, one of the building blocks of plastics. The chemical plant that I worked at in Baytown, Texas, we made 12 million pounds of ethylene every day. And it's hard when you're standing in the chemical plant's closed system. You can't see the ethylene flowing through the towers and the meters, but 12 million pounds every day. It takes a lot of energy to make 12 million pounds of ethylene or 12 million pounds of anything every day. It wasn't really until I got later in my career to retail, where we're selling electricity and natural gas, that I figured out or saw how those big chemical plants, the biggest loads on our power grid, aging power grid, those were the sweethearts. Those are the corporate buyers that all the retailers we wanted to sell. Nice flat load, easy to hedge, great credit quality. Those really were the customers that we all wanted. But that's changing. I bet just about everybody in this room uploaded something, downloaded something, tweeted something, posted something to Facebook yesterday. All of that data, those are bits and bytes. They're electrons. Electrons are energy. All of that technology that we're seeing driving this economy is using a tremendous amount of electricity to do it. Did you know that a single Google search uses the same amount of electricity as lighting a 60-watt light bulb for 17 seconds. There are billions of Google searches happening every day. So data centers. Data centers are the new corporate sweethearts we all want to serve, the Facebooks, Google, Amazon, eBay. And that amount of energy and how that's impacting our grid is really turning to become a bit disruptive. At EDF, the company I work for, Electricité de France, not the Environmental Defense Fund, we're the other EDF. EDF, we're working on how to be the disruptor. Innovation is no longer enough. Everybody's being innovative, but how do we really disrupt? And we're looking at it in 3 ways. The first is wholesale market access. So the big energy consumers, they want to be able to see what's the underlying commodity doing, whether it's the power or natural gas. They want to be able to step in, hedge, buy their blocks. When they have outages or turnarounds, sell those back. Our markets in the United States, when we deregulated, so back when deregulation started to happen, the regulators stepped in and they took and they broke the generators away from the traders and the traders away from the retailers, and it worked. It brought in new competition, it drove down costs, but it had one unintended consequence, and that unintended consequence was that no single entity could, from the moment a megawatt was generated all through the hedging and optimization of that megawatt, deliver it to the end-use customer, because we broke those pieces apart. So we're working real hard to figure out how to put those puzzle pieces back together to take the generation, the hedging and optimization, all the way down to the end-use customer and the billing. Second piece is renewable. Everybody wants to be green. Most of those customers I just mentioned, Facebook came out and said by 2018, they're going to be 100% green for all those data centers. We're working with our customers to build wind farms, build solar fields, figure out how to make green competitive, economic, viable, reliable, all the things that we love. And one of the things that's happening with the production tax credits and with the renewable energy credits, green is easy now. It's actually competitive with the traditional natural gas and coal. You saw a lot of corporate buyers out last year doing long-term PPAs from wind, typically, and they got lots of credit for doing that, but it was also a cheaper alternative than going and doing a long-term traditional fired facility. And then the third piece is technology. So we have an iPhone app. Just about everybody has an iPhone app now. But our iPhone app is a little bit different in that these corporate buyers, when they buy wind, if they bought it as delivered or solar as generated, they can see their generation supply, they can see the load that they're consuming at their facilities, they can see real-time prices, weather coming in, day-ahead spreads, system frequency, you name it. And that's important because as this technology has progressed and really gotten a whole lot more sophisticated, if you own data centers across the country and prices are really high in Texas because, whatever reason, the wind stopped blowing, our customers can actually shift load between regions. So if they've got a facility in North Carolina that's regulated and the price doesn't change a whole lot, when prices are high in Texas, you can actually shift some of your data processing over to North Carolina. When the price comes back and it's low, you can shift it back to Texas. Having all of that happen without human intervention, the systems are now smart enough to process all of that data and help our customers take all that data, turn it into information that they can use to run their businesses. So, in conclusion, we have a weekly sales call. We get our originators all together. They come back and tell us what our customers want. And every once in a while, I'll have a salesperson who says, this customer's got this harebrained idea. It's never going to work. I can't believe they're even thinking. It's too complicated. And I say to them, we as an industry, being innovative is not enough. We need to be disruptive. And who do you want to be at the end of the day? Do you want to be Uber or do you want to be the taxi cab? And I want to be Uber. Thank you.
While Bill sets up, in case you're having a hard time reading or figuring out what our first two speakers talked about, so Steve talked about here, the Internet of Things arrived. Marianne summed it up really well at the end, getting beyond innovative and innovation and being disruptive. So that's a positive message, and yes, we all want to be the Ubers. Well, not everybody, but yeah, I don't want to be the taxi guy. And then Bill is going to take us in another direction altogether from potentially gloomy, but I'm going to leave it at that, but there's an upside. Silver lining, there always is. Okay, so take it away, Bill. Here we go.
All right, how many people have one of these things? Come on, how many people still use it? Not many, right? So what replaced this thing? Anybody? I heard you, right? The iPod. So what made the iPod so much better than this thing? Well, I mean, it was smaller. You could put it in your shirt pocket. You know, it had a lot more songs. But what was really missing from the iPod? What was the real significantly different thing about the iPod? Anybody? Well, I'll show you. You don't have these things anymore, right? Not only that, you don't have the cabinets and, you know, stuff in your glove compartment. The iPod wasn't just the replacement of this thing. The iPod really was a significant transformation of the entire music industry, wasn't it? Really. It changed everything. In fact, it changed the way we thought about music, the way we listened to music, and the way we bought music. And if you're in the business of making CD containers and cabinets and stuff, you're screwed, right? So what is the electric utility business kind of equivalent of the iPod? Because keep in mind that the iPod also was a platform, an iTunes platform. That's what changed it, right? So what was it? Well, I think you have wireless technology or wireless electricity that's coming, maybe. But what about just the solar panels, right? Can't that be the platform that really has changed the industry? So we really talk about the utility death spiral. You've heard of that term a lot. And what does it look like? Well, somebody buys a solar panel, revenues go down, and at the same time, the utility distribution system still has to be there, so the costs of that thing continues to rise. So you have then the utility business goes to the regulators, raises the rates, prices go up, people buy more solar panels, revenues go down, prices go up, people buy more solar panels, you know. So that becomes the sort of the death spiral. That's really what's involved here. But we have an opportunity here, I think, to transform the business, not by incremental change, but by significant and brand new things. So we need to change. We have to create. We have to call to adventure. We have to create something called the new platform, kind of a platform of change. And what is a platform anyway? So in Phil Simon's book, The Age of the Platform, he talks about a platform as something very simple. It's a platform allows people to connect and reach one another to gain information. That's what a platform is. So we know about platforms like Amazon and of course the Apple iTunes platform and Facebook. It's all about transforming. If you look at Facebook, what did it do? It actually transformed the industry completely. So where are we in this whole platform idea? I mean, I think actually we're kind of in a revolution, and it's really something we can do to stop this utility death spiral, which is think about the grid not as something that we deliver, but as a platform. So you remember Andreas Carvalho, he actually coined the term smart grid, right? So here you're hearing it for the very first time, the grid as a platform. So a platform delivers stuff, but it also delivers information. And I think about the platform change kind of like what happened in the computing industry, right? Remember the computing industry? First it was, when I was a kid, you had mainframes and timeshare. So you had this kind of delivery of things from the mainframe to people, kind of consumers. That was the mainframe idea. Closing out of the way. And then what happened? The PCs came along, right? And PCs kind of revolutionized the way we think about the mainframes. So a PC came along, and I got power. I don't have to deal with those stodgy IT people. right? So remember the PC, now I don't have to worry about it. I get everything I need, and I can get rid of the mainframe and those controls. But the problem with the PC was that it didn't really have enough storage, or it didn't have enough memory. So what I had to do is, I thought about, well, what am I going to do? Then the internet came along, and the PCs got to be connected. Connection. So that's kind of what Phil Simon was talking about with a platform. Yeah, now I have a platform for connection. So that was the PC. And then, then what came along was client server. But what really has come along is this idea of the cloud. So now I have tablets and iPhones with tons of capability, but I also have the cloud, which is infinitely scalable. So now I've got this hybrid kind of situation with the cloud and PCs and tablets and iPhones all working together. It's a platform, a connection. So think about what the electric utility industry is going to be like in the future, or even today. So today we're sort of there now, right? We're like the mainframe kind of idea, where we're taking electricity and sort of delivering it out. But the solar system, solar panels, are kind of like the PCs, aren't they? They say, okay, now I'm going to take my solar panel and I'm going to put the Musk, the Tesla battery, and now I don't have to worry about that pesky utility company. But then what happens is, what if I have a pool party and I've got a margarita machine and I've got those bouncy things and I've got to crank up my AC? Well, if I'm going to be cutting the cord for the utility company, I don't have enough power. So the idea then is that the platform for the utility business is about, like Phil Simon said in his platform idea, to connect. So we're really talking about a connection, and that's really where the value is for our platform. So the new way, the new vision is one of like the cloud, kind of a hybrid thing where we have scalability in the platform. You have it, the power stations, and then the power plants and the network all combined together with the solar system to create kind of a network of microgrids. That's the vision. Very much like the utility industry. So we're going to be, very much like the computing industry. We're going to be going through that transformation. So when I think about the platform, I think about the 3 Ps, or the 3 Ps of the connection. The first P, of course, is the physical aspect, right? So you already have that. So we want to connect people physically with the wires. So that's where the value is right now, just like the internet. And the second P is partnering. Partnering with customers, with suppliers. So it's this notion of a platform, just like Amazon, delivering content and information. And then the third P is the platform, the grid as a platform. Bringing together all of these pieces, just like Amazon. So we're going to be the new platform. So the utility death spiral is not going to happen. Like Mark Twain said, the rumors of my death have been highly exaggerated. So that's not going to happen. So this is the idea of the utility of the future is going to be great. It's going to be terrific. So I have just one more little story to tell you about innovation. And I think part of the problem with like the future is we think about incremental changes. We think of improvement as being incremental. When you think about this thing here, what did I do with it? In the box. I put this thing in the box. So remember, what was this thing? This was an improvement over the Walkman, right? So it's kind of incremental improvement. But we have to think about transformational improvement. So I grew up in New England, and in New England we used to have these textile mills all over the place. Remember that? Textile mill, and they were long, skinny buildings, and they had to be built along a river or a canal. And so what these textile buildings had were these huge water wheels, and that's how they were driven. And connected to the water wheels was this long shaft that actually ran the whole length of the buildings. The problem with mills is that you had to have these things built next to the rivers. Then came electricity. So now somebody says, aha, what we can do is we can get rid of that big old water wheel and replace it with an electric motor. Aha. So now I don't have to build those things next to rivers and canals and stuff. I could put them anywhere. But what the breakthrough was not replacing the water wheel, but replacing the shaft with all kinds of tiny little electric motors. So the incremental change would be to replace the water wheel, but the breakthrough is replacing the shaft. So when you think about going the next stage, going the next place. Think about taking your customers and your communities and your employees and making sure that you don't give them the shaft. Thank you.
When I was a kid, my mother said, "You made a mess, you clean it up."
Ah.
But that was a good. I can't top that one. So, all right. Oh, I guess. Okay.
Thank
I
you.
need your mic. Thank you. I knew that guy at the back of the room was doing something important. Okay, that's much better. All right, so we are pretty much at the end of our presentations, and they were all great. And now you have the hardest job, and anyone out there too. So if you'd like, maybe Claire, you just hand her I know you just saw the end pieces, but we're going to get our votes in. So if you haven't voted yet, pick the one you like the best. That's the whole kind of build up to this here, and then we'll pass them along. Clara will collect them. Yes, that's great. Okay, so we started with Steve. The Internet of Things arrives. Okay, that was Steve's presentation. Mary Ann's getting beyond innovation to be disruptive. And then Bill's the utility death spiral, should you choose to see that as a bad thing. But I'm with Bill. It's an opportunity for reinvention. The world I come from, telecoms, went through it, and they're going to be just fine. And I totally believe conferences like this, when you see this kind of thinking, you have to draw the same conclusion because the opportunity is there. And it's just a matter of applying new ideas, fresh thinking, new technologies, so we don't have the Walkmans to be carrying around anymore. Change the experience. Okay, great. Our votes are coming in, and we've got this little machine in the back that's going to be grinding all kinds of numbers and computations. And so while we're waiting, Adam, why don't you give us a little something? And so while that's going on, we'll get all the votes in, please. Oh, we got one more. One more coming at the back there, thanks. So don't worry, we'll be done very shortly, and we will get you back in time for the opening at the Paramount. Okay. So how is this working? We're just going to pile them up. All right. Okay. All right. I'll need the proverbial drum roll in a moment. So the caucuses have done their business. They've cast their votes. The votes have been counted. You've done a wonderful job, Clara, and yes, this is all very on the up and up. So we have a winner, and what if I told you it was Ted Cruz? Wrong room for that one. All right, I'm from Canada. We just went through an election too. So, okay, so we have a winner, and here's how we're going to do this. I'm going to announce the winner, and then we're going to have a little ceremony for a check writing moment here. So the idea is that the winner gets to give a donation. We're putting up a $500 donation. So that's kind of a financial incentive to charity of the winner's choice. So we're going to have that itemized now. Okay, so proverbial acoustic drum roll. That's pretty good. I thought that was Star Trek for a minute, or the Twilight Zone. Okay. All right, so we've got a winner, and we'll get you out of here in like 2 minutes. Okay, so the winner is Marianne. All right, thank you. Okay, So here's what we're going to do. I know you're worried about your handwriting, but you just have to do
really
one
bad.
more thing. So we got your big fat Sharpie. Okay, so I will ask you to just write out the name of the charity of your choice and your name at the
All right,
bottom.
here we go.
And then we'll show it to the audience for a photo. Don't worry, you'll get to see this. Oh, I kind of thought that might be something like that.
Right here?
Yeah, down here, yes.
Okay.
Okay, let's share it with the audience. Okay, why don't you hold this up? We got a nice photo here. Okay. Okay. So a good choice, empowering, right? Anyone, is it just me that we couldn't get power in the auditorium yesterday on our computers? No? No? Okay. All right, and here we go, empowering women. Great choice. So thank you again, Mary Ann. Thank you to our other speakers. Okay, Bill and Steve, let's give them another round of applause. And the piano man does not have a tip jar, so just applaud and smile and let's give him a round. Thank you, Adam. All right, so thank you. Okay, you can put that in your pocket or just take a photo of it and deposit it on your phone to the bank. All right, so on your way over to the Paramount, there's some pastries on the way out. Please feel free.